Hey guys, if you haven't done so already, make sure that you sign up for the newsletter that I have in the description or on my website. When you go to my website, there's a pop-up and you can sign up for my newsletter. This will ensure that we can stay in touch. So just in case YouTube doesn't send out notifications and stuff, I can let you guys know what I'm up to or what's going on. Because I've had a number of you say that you haven't seen my videos pop up for a long time and you were surprised to see that I'm still uploading. Well, I've been uploading at least 3 times a week for the last several years. I haven't stopped. So if you're not receiving my videos, then well, that's a YouTube thing. So yeah, make sure you sign up for the newsletter. Second of all, make sure you check out my Rumble channel because I am doing workout vlogs on Rumble. I'll put the link in the description for that as well. And if you subscribe there, you get to see some of the workout vlogs that I'm doing and you get to follow me play by play. And I cover different subjects and different aspects of my training there as well that is supplementary to what I'm doing here on YouTube. So it's not like I'm repeating the same videos. I'm actually doing some other stuff there. So I might be answering some of your comments there on Rumble. I'm doing that quite a bit actually. And lastly, if you do have a question and you want me to make a video about it, you can do 2 things. You can actually make a request and I'll make a video, or you can also check out my playlists down below on this channel. If you click on playlists, you can find that I've organized the videos in different libraries, making them very easy to find. So I just had somebody ask me about a nutrition video about what supplements I'm using right now. What am I doing in my diet for supplementation? Well, I made a video on that and it is in the nutrition playlist. So a lot of times the questions you guys have, I've already answered them probably 3 or 4 times. If you just find the right playlist, you'll actually find the video. But I don't mind making another video, but just in case you want an answer right away, you can take a look down there and I've got like 700 or 800 videos now. So there's lots of stuff there. Mountain. Now on to the video.
Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Gallant Bodybuilding, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the full range of motion stupidity. Basically, people are getting indoctrinated into bullshit instead of understanding what works by looking at people and their own experiences right in front of them. This is the reason why we have this catastrophe in the world right now. People are all looking at some, piece of paper somewhere or somebody's notes and saying, "Oh, that's more true than what's actually happening in my body." And this is the war that I've been fighting for years, okay? So I just had somebody who's a nice guy, this guy named Ryan. So shout out to you, Ryan. Thanks for commenting and stuff, and thanks for following. But you made a comment that's really not true for the most part, okay? This guy said that you have to do full range of motion, otherwise you'll be so weak in that other range if you're only doing partial reps. Now, first of all, we have to define what a partial rep is. Some people think that full range means, say you're doing bench press, you have to touch the bar to your chest. But is that really full range? It's not. If you have dumbbells, you could go beyond the chest. And maybe, if you're really flexible, maybe you could touch your elbows to the floor. I don't know, But you can go way further than what is termed correct range of motion on exercise. Now, why is a certain range of motion usually termed correct? Well, the reason is when you go beyond a certain range of motion, the chance of injuries go up exponentially, and they go up more for some than others, depending on how they are built. So one person's partial rep will be their full rep, really. And then another person, that might not be a big enough rep for them. Maybe they need to do a little bit more of a range of motion. So you have to understand that what you have been taught as a partial rep is not true. What you've been taught is that there is one way to do a repetition, and that's based on some guy's dimensions, and then you're automatically assuming that your dimensions are the same as that person. This is your first mistake. Second of all, there have been lots of studies, including my own study, which is the most important, that when I have done repetitions like I do on the bench press, I can still do a full range of motion bench press with much more weight than, say, years before, right? I always was stopping a little bit above my chest in bench pressing because I found it kept the tension on the chest. Now, when I wanted to test my 1 rep max, guess what? When I touched the chest, the 1 rep max still went up. Guess what? When I wanted to use heavy weight, I could still use heavy weight and touch the chest. Maybe it was like 5% less weight, but I still went up in strength from doing the partial reps. Now, another reason why your comment is not true is because a lot of powerlifters use partial reps as an integral part of their training in order to trick the nervous system and to gain strength. Now, if this served no purpose whatsoever, in order for them to perform the full range of motion rep, why would they do it? Why would they do it, right? They do it because it helps increase strength on a lot of ranges of motion, not just the range that they're working. Now, the other thing is I also had a guy that designed my t-shirts, guy Sam Weller, right? A comic book artist from England, so shout out Sam if you're still watching. And Sam basically was doing bench presses for years, and he was programmed, like a lot of you guys, that he had to touch his chest no matter what, even if he's getting joint pain. So he was touching his chest during bench press, getting joint pain repeatedly for years and years and years this went on. And then when he stopped touching his chest and used the range of motion based on what felt right for him, his strength went up. Now, based on what you just said, Ryan, his strength only should have went up in that range of motion. But you know what happened? His full range bench press also went up at the exact same proportion. So once again, you've been proven wrong. Now, you guys can either trust what I'm saying or experiment on yourself with what I'm saying, which I'd rather you do, right? Experiment, find out what works, and I'm open to that. So when you make a statement, I'm okay with you saying, hey, this is what works for me, Jason. I'm totally okay with that. That's exactly what I'm pushing you to understand and to discover. But what I'm not okay with is you saying blanket statements that are just not true, because I've already proven it. I'm a walking embodiment of disapproval of your theory, right? So it's almost insulting when you say these things, like Jason's doing everything wrong, but maybe it works for him. You know, it's just not truthful. You know what I'm saying? So I understand there's a time and place to use full range of motion for certain things. And once again, we have to define what full range of motion is for an individual first. But there are ranges of motion, and I will tell you this straight up. There are ranges of motion that if you use them, although they might be right for somebody else, they will devastate your body and cause nothing but chronic inflammation and problems. There is a reason why guys are walking around the gym with elbow wraps, knee wraps, wearing a belt all the time, and you know they get to a point where they can't even do anything without a belt. They even need a belt during arm curls. There's a reason for this, because they didn't listen to what the body was telling them and pushed through anyway and used a certain weight or a range of motion which was not right for them. Or perhaps they didn't stretch or get themselves prepared to do said range of motion before they did it and then they snapped something. Or what I see most commonly is that there are certain ranges of motion that are just not the right thing to do for lifting weights. Now, let's go to the squat, for instance. There are a lot of guys out there that when you ask them what full range of motion for the squat is, they will say 90 degrees at the knee. Another guy will see parallel squat because that's what's required in powerlifting. And another guy will say, oh, those powerlifters are fucking weak. All they do is those goddamn, parallel squats. They need to sit their ass on their heels. Otherwise, they're just weak and doing it all wrong. You understand the stupidity of this? It's a matter of lifting weight in the range of motion that is in alignment with your body's greater health. If it is breaking down the body and you have to hobble around like Ronnie Coleman 10 years after, that cannot be the proper way to train. It can't. It cannot be the proper way to gain muscle, and it cannot be in alignment with your vitality. And that's what I'm teaching here. Now that said, just because I'm talking about finding the perfect range of motion for heavier weights and things, it doesn't mean that I'm foregoing stretching of any kind or foregoing warming up with different ranges of motion. I've talked about this 1,000 times, but this is kind of the challenge on YouTube because a lot of people don't watch your older videos, so you have to explain stuff to them, so they always misunderstand everything you're saying. But the bottom line is that if you're doing lighter weights, you can get away with a little bit more range of motion in some cases without the same risk of injury. So you see me all the time when I'm bench pressing. Sometimes I will touch my chest with a bar because I'm using such light weight that it doesn't put the same pressure on the joints under those ranges of motion, and therefore I can get a good warm up in and a little bit of stretching, and then therefore when I use the heavier weights and find the strategic range of motion, I'm still warmed up and stretched out and everything feels pretty good, right? So sometimes range of motion is weight dependent. It's not always just this is the way you do something under every single condition. As you lift heavier, sometimes you'll notice that the range of motion has to change in order for the joint to be supported properly. And of course, this is always dependent on how you're built and what type of injury history you have. See me, I have one shoulder that sits forward more than the other one because of the dislocation labral tear. So because of that, I have to lift differently than maybe I would if my shoulders were perfectly healthy. So you have to work with this limitation. And to ignore it and just go through it and say, oh, one range of motion is always the right one no matter what, you will snap something or cause just a chronic inflammation or a problem in that area. And the other thing I'm going to say is a lot of people mix up passive range of motion with active range of motion. They feel that, oh, I can squat with my body weight right down to my heels, no problem, and get back up, and there's no problem. But when they put weight on their back, they can't necessarily do the same thing. It's not always because of strength. Sometimes it's because of counterbalancing and how the forces play out because of this. So it changes what muscles are activated or not, and what muscles have to be flexible in a certain way or not, or how the joints move. So there are sometimes more complicated things going on than just weight and range of motion. Sometimes there is a different way the forces are playing out because of the counterbalancing effect. So this is also something you have to take into account. And the other thing is the amount of shear force on an area. Some areas can take a lot of force under certain ranges of motion, but once you go beyond that, then they can't take that much force. You know what I'm saying? Passive range and active range are just different, and you have to find out what the ideal range is where you're able to maintain proper strength. And like I said before, no matter what range of motion you're working in, your body does get stronger overall. It's like the muscles are ropes and they get stronger. So even if you go a bit farther than your normal range of motion, you still are stronger because you've worked with those weights in your ideal range of motion. So again, I encourage you to stretch. I encourage you to use a little bit more of a fuller range of motion when you're using super light weights as something to work around and to constantly discover whether you just have a flexibility issue, or even if you don't have a flexibility issue, you do want to work and pump blood into the area in creative ways, but you want to do it safely. And when you're using heavy weights, that's when you want to be really impeccable to what is the proper range of motion for your body. Motion. That's it, Ryan. So thanks a lot for commenting and stuff and spurring this video. Motion. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalgallantbodybuilding.com, and thanks to the Patreon supporters, and take care for now. Natural Gallant.